Okay.
Okay, so that would be my essential position. Your fear, I can handle, right? What happens to you? Okay, what experiences you have? I have no control over that. I have no influence over that. And do you want to get rid of those? If you want to get rid of those perceptions, I don't know how to do that for you. Because I don't know if they're real or not.
And here Tom was thinking that he could come to you and you're an alien buster. Like a Ghostbuster only with aliens.
Well, that's how sometimes we're perceived, right?
Yeah, right. That's true.
Well, Tom's worked on about 100 abduction cases.
Fascinating.
Well, they come to him because he holds his hand up and goes, "Hey, I look after abduction people," and then they swarm on him.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I over the years, I've worked with a number of psychologists and psychiatrists that have taken up those type of situations.
Yeah,
and even though it's a subject that's kind of off the cuff and to the side, psychiatry has sort of kind of like pushed it off and hasn't really.
No, I would be interested in hearing all of these people's experiences. I really would. I mean, hey, I'm open to it, but so if you want to tell me about your experiences with these aliens, I'd be fascinated to hear it, but I don't know what I can do. What is it that you want me to do to help you with that? That's a different kind of question. I have met with cult members. Cults are a very fascinating group. I'm seeing two people now who have been a member of a cult. One was born into the cult. The other joined it later on. They both eventually left and married, okay? But they're still suffering the remnants of being in a cult, which was, a programmed way of seeing reality, okay?
Yeah.
Was it called Christianity?
No.
Okay.
Actually, it was called ethical realism. At first blush, it had a lot to offer. But when I went to an ashram once, you see, this is my basic thing about, I went up to Kripalu Institute, which is a yoga institute, and the yogi was there, Yoga Desai, his name was. And there was satsang and people were, dancing and waving their hands. And then there was a question and answer period. And one of the questions had to do with being able to voice your opinion, which is different than the gurus. And I forget how it was phrased. But as soon as I heard the guru's response, I knew the guy was a phony, you see? Because he would never allow people to challenge anything he was talking about, okay? So they became dependent on him for their reality. Whereas in Ram Dass, you see, why I loved Ram Dass so much is when he was a teacher, okay, when he started to feel that people were getting too dependent on him, he would disband the meditation group because he knew something not healthy was happening. People were giving up their lives to other person other than finding their own guru in their own heart. And that's why I loved Ram Dass from the very beginning.
You are your own guru.
You are your own guru. If you meet the guru on the road, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that book?
Exactly.
Well, that's the essence of that book, right?
Just a reflection back on what we were talking about earlier as far as abduction cases and psychiatry. Professor John Mack, who was a professor of psychiatry at Harvard, basically when he got into it, he got a lot of backlash from, backlash from the community he was involved in. But I mean, being who he was, such a well-known figure. I mean, Harvard, professor. They couldn't keep him down. I mean, he did a lot of work in the field of
Right.
alien abductions and talking to people and listening to what they had to say. You know, I mean,
Hmm.
it goes a long way.
Right, right, yes, because
But,
he wasn't afraid to lose his job.
No,
exactly.
I guess not.
But you know, one thing I found though with you know, as well as this or any other type of case, and I'm not talking just like in the UFO paranormal type scenario. Um, when we're dealing with belief systems, right, that are already ingrained into our, you know, the back of our mind.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter whether you know you believe in a religion, you believe in UFOs, you
Right.
believe in little aliens, or whatever it may be. You're still dealing with belief systems,
Hmm.
right? And you have to be able to challenge, you know,
Right,
those type of belief systems, and be
right,
able to tap into it and see where they came from,
right, right.
and how to deal with them, and you know, possibly take them out, you know, from wherever
Hmm.
they happen to be. So if the fear, now even though, like, what I found is that even though a lot of these folks were fearful of those the aliens and whatever was going on, they still had um, some kind of attachment to them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that they felt they had to be part of them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they would come to me and say, you know what, I'm really scared, I'm afraid, I want to get rid of it. And as soon as I would say to them, okay, if I were to give you a way to get out of it, would you take it? And
Ah.
they would say, well, I don't know,
Well, that's a
maybe.
very, very interesting. That's a very interesting thing because in the 50s, Eric Fromm wrote a book called Escape from Freedom. And there are people in my field, very few, who think that all mental illness, mental, are ways of avoiding responsibility for your own life.
And many
So,
other things.
and yeah, so that um, when if I gave, what would happen to me if I gave up this belief in aliens, or if I gave up the belief that my father molested me? Okay, because because when you deal with trauma, someone comes in and finally acknowledges that their father or brother or someone sexually molested them. As a therapist, we don't know whether or not that's true. There is a whole controversy in our field on false memory syndrome.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my wife and I wrote a play about the false memory syndrome, about the woman who was induced to believe that her father molested her. Okay, and then she killed herself, and there's a whole play on that. Because there are some researchers that say there is no such thing as a false memory, and other clinicians think that there is. Okay, and so, but if a person comes in and says, "I have this memory that my father came into the room and touched me," okay, so what is it that you want me to do with that? Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to understand that? Do you want us to understand how that has affected you all your life? Do you want to get over that trauma? Okay. Uh, you tell me what you want now that you have that memory, what you want to do about it.
Well, you see, this is the whole thing, because I find that, you know, p- psychiatry tends to worry about things that are not the solution.
Right.
They're looking at, you know, the overall situation. So if somebody comes to you and says, like you said, you know, I had a problem with my father,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're just looking at that now and thinking, well, you know, was it real? Is it false?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but rather than trying to figure out what is it that this person wants,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, how do they have to deal with it when they're coming to you?
Right.
You know?
Paul Simon. You know Paul Simon, the writer,
Hmm.
the lyricist.
Yep.
Uh, on the Graceland. This is one of my mottos, actually. On the Graceland album, which is a great album. I love the album. There's a song called Gumboots.
Yeah.
And Gumboots describes, Paul Simon is walking down the streets with his friend, and his friend is talking about what's happening to him, et cetera, et cetera. And Simon says, breakdowns come and breakdowns go. What you're going to do about it is what I want to know.
Exactly.
Well, that's been a mantra of mine. What do you want to do about it? What do you want to change about that? What is there about that's uncomfortable for you? So that's basically my position right now. What do you want to do about
Do you
it?
ever ask them, what are you getting out of it?
Well, that's right. What are you getting out of it? What are the pros and cons of? Actually, Byron Katie asked that question. She's a recovering alcoholic who has written Loving What Is and a number of other books. She has a series of questions that she asks people. Is it true? Are you absolutely sure that it's true? Who would you be without that belief? Okay. Meaning, what are the advantages and disadvantages of holding on to that belief, right?
That's a big one. Who would you be without that belief?
Who would you be without that belief? So she asked those kinds of questions, and people start to reflect on why they're holding on to this idea. What does it do for them?
Yeah, it's funny. I did a little experiment at work when I would just randomly go around and I'd meet people. I do location work in the film industry. And I would meet people, and I would just say, after getting into a conversation, I'd say to them, what would you do if there was no money in the world and you could do anything you wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And what I found more often than not is it stopped them in their tracks and made them confused.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't shake their identity with their job. They couldn't
right.
They couldn't shake who they were. Just anything. You could do anything you want. There's no money in the world. Doesn't exist. Everything's at your beck and call. You have free. You're free to do anything you want to do. What would you do? And they go. The big response I got was, I don't know.
I don't know. Right. Well, most people don't do what's in their heart to do. If you can find, work that you do that's in your heart, then you're really one of the few lucky ones.
I mean, the easy flippant answer is, well, I'd be on a beach, drinking margaritas, having naked village girls deliver, I mean, and some people, that may be what they would do.
Yeah, maybe they would do that.
Sure. But, I mean, as far as, what would they really do? You had some people that would latch onto it pretty much right away and go, wow, I've always wanted to write. Or I've always wanted to do this or that, or I'd spend more time, with my hobbies, because hobbies they do not because they're being paid to do it, but because they love to do it.
They love it, right? Then it becomes a labor of love, and that's Ram Dass's question: who are you after you finish being who you think you are?
Right, exactly.
That's his question. Oh, I'm getting a little tired, fellas.
Okay.
I'm an old man,
Well, it's been an amazing interview, and I really thank you for your time and your insight.
Well, thank you. I mean, if you down the road you want to do some more of this, I enjoyed it. I love talking about my work and my experiences, because they've shaped me into who I am, and who I think I am at this point anyway.
Who you're identified with.
And who I identified with, right. Well, thank you guys. Scott and Tom, I appreciate, your interest. And, could I hear this interview at some point down the line?
Definitely.
Oh, definitely.
How do I do that?
You're just going to go to the past shows section, and under your picture and your biography, there'll be a MP3 player.
Okay.
And you'll be able to click on that and listen to it. But what we're going to do now is I'm just going to ask you quickly, do you have a website that people could go to?
I don't know if I ever kept it up to date, but it might be Dr. George Steinfeld, www.drgeorgesteinfeld. I think I once made up a website like that, but I don't.
I think Tom's been there. When you do publish your book, maybe we can get a link to your website where people can go and purchase it.
Well, I've been writing the book for 20-odd years. I have this irrational fear. Maybe it's irrational, maybe not. If I ever finished the book, I would die. So that's
so you've decided to write the book forever.
That's a belief system I have, which I don't want to test out. So I keep writing it and expanding it. It's now 400 pages of stuff that I've...
That's hilarious.
Okay.
Wow. Thanks for your time, George.
All right, guys. I really appreciated it.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.